Heads up to the listeners of the Browns Nation station. If you are looking to show your Browns Nation pride, look no further than brownsnationswag.com. They have all the latest and best fan gear to represent your team. Again, that's brownsnationswag.com. Cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Browns Nation station. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined today by KMAX sports reporter Eric Kelly. And Eric, we are recording this after the Browns' 38-7 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it looks like we've got a quarterback controversy in Cleveland, EK.
I guess, yeah. I don't really know how much of it was a controversy as much as it was a blowout, and Baker's already dealing with a rib issue, and the offensive line was getting worked, and he was getting hit every other time he dropped back. So there really seemed no point to keep him in the game. I mean, let's be honest. You can say it's a quarterback controversy. If people want Case Keenum, they're out of their minds.
You know what? I'm with you in this sense, right? I said coming into this game, this was going to be a line of scrimmage game, but it doesn't matter who the Browns put back there. If they get dominated at the line of scrimmage like they did today and like they did in week 1 against Baltimore, and those are your two top teams that you're going to be competing against in the AFC North Division, I don't care which guy would have been back there. It would have been 1A, 1B, EK, because Keenum came in and he provides that jolt like a backup quarterback will, but how long is that really sustainable? I don't really see how Keenum gives this Browns offense a major upgrade over Baker Mayfield. I know fans want to point out all the struggles with Mayfield of how he was the first overall pick and he might not be playing up to that level, but Case Keenum, there's a reason why he's been a journeyman in this league and he's bounced from team to team to team to team. He's not your long-term answer either. I think you're kind of doomed either way. But again, I don't care which guy you put back there. If this offensive line gets dominated like they were today, and they were without Wyatt Teller, I'll point that out and concede that as a caveat. But it doesn't matter which guy they put back there. This team got destroyed up front this afternoon.
You could say no Wyatt Teller, fine. But Chris Hubbard was the top-rated run-blocking offensive lineman through the first few weeks. So it's not like this guy you're putting in as a scrub who hasn't played before. Chris Hubbard has experience. He's been good in the run game. He was not good in the run game, nor was anyone really good in the run game today. And I hope people are saying Case Keenum as a joke because, I mean, it's not going to do anything. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and try to defend those 2 interceptions that Baker threw. They were awful. The one was him trying to make a play, which he always tries to do. Throw the ball away at a certain point. I don't understand why he's throwing it up into coverage. And then the first one was also horrific where he just stared down the receiver on third down and Minka Fitzpatrick was able to make the easy interception. But for the most part, I mean, his offensive line was awful today. I mean, we talked about, a couple weeks ago after the Cowboys game, that they've been maybe the best offensive line in football through the first couple weeks. They were not today. Not in any way, shape, form, in any country, in any world. I mean, they were just awful. And Baker can only go so far as he's protected, especially you put an injured quarterback behind that line today. Listen, I get it, and I understand why he kept him in there so long. He's a warrior. But, at a certain point, I think he had to look at how the offensive line was playing and maybe pull him earlier, not because of his performance, but just looking down the road, you're 4-2. You've got a pretty easy schedule for the most part in the next couple of weeks. Just understand when maybe it's a lost cause.
And how about the victory cigar by the Steelers at the very end, putting in Mason Rudolph? And remember, this afternoon's game was the first time Myles Garrett had played against the Steelers since last November's brawl. Garrett was out of the game by the time Rudolph was in. And I do give Kevin Stefanski and this staff credit for knowing when to call off the dogs and take out their star players because the game was well out of reach. So I saw OBJ on the sideline. Garrett got taken out. They put in Hilliard as the running back, the third stringer. And so you could see that the Browns were conceding defeat at that point. But going back to your point with the interception, the pick six to Minka just shows you why the Steelers traded a first-round draft pick to the Miami Dolphins for this guy a year ago and the difference maker that he's been on the Steelers defense. And with Mayfield, it's like, here we go again with the turnovers. And he throws the pick six, and you lose the turnover battle to the Steelers. You're not going to beat them. You're not going to beat them. He puts the Browns in a horrible spot, down 10-0 early on in the game. You go down by that double-digit deficit, and you get away from running the football, which is the strength of this Browns offense.
Yeah, and listen, I get it. Like, a lot whenever this happens is going to come back to Baker and his interceptions being the big storyline. But I'm concerned because this is now 2 straight weeks the Browns have just not been able to run the ball in any way, shape, or form. And that's the concerning thing to me, because Baker's going to be Baker, and Baker's going to throw interceptions. It's what he does. At a certain point, you almost have to learn to win knowing that he might make a horrific throw or two in a game. I mean, they did it last week against the Colts. But the concern is they can't run the ball. The past 2 weeks really just has been a frustrating 2 weeks in terms of trying to establish the run. And I get it. Indy's good against the run. Pittsburgh is the best run defense in the NFL. But this is strength on strength. You're supposed to be able to – I don't care who it is. If you're the number one rushing offense in the league, you're supposed to be the number one rushing offense against the league. Maybe you drop back a little bit because you're facing a better run defense, but you're still supposed to get something, some push. I mean, 4th and 1 twice, no push. And I know the second 4th and 1 game's way out of hand and really doesn't matter in the long scheme of things, but still, 4th and 1, 0 push either time. I think that's, for me, what the really big storyline is and what's concerning going down the road is their inability to run the football.
You stole my line in the sense that the Browns were 0 for 3 on 4th down conversions today. And I really think that last November's brawl between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph is something that the Steelers came into this game with an edge. And I really think they had that in the back of their minds of, hey, we're going to stick up for our guy for everything that happened. And a lot of the things that they accuse Rudolph of saying, which Garrett says sparked last year's brawl. We don't need to relitigate that, but I think that the Steelers really came out and had that in the back of their mind this afternoon in today's game. And again, 0 for 3 for the Browns on 4th down conversions today. And again, I go back to the point where if you look at the line of scrimmage, look at the tackles, look at the edge rushers for the Browns, they did not get the same push that they normally do. But then on the flip side of the ball as well, it seemed like Cam Hayward for the Steelers was in the backfield all day. It seems like TJ Watt and Bud Dupree were in the backfield all day. And there wasn't a whole lot that the Browns could do. And again, say what you want about Baker Mayfield's limitations, because this is going to be a subject topic among Cleveland Browns fans all week leading up to their Week 7 game against the Bengals. But there's only so much that he can do if he doesn't have any time back there to throw the ball. And then if you're trying to run against this front seven for Pittsburgh, Browns didn't do that this afternoon.
And I hope that isn't the main takeaway from today's game. I mean, Baker
but you know it's going to be, EK. You know it's going to be.
I hope it's not knowing what sports talk radio has become. And I know it's going to be, but that's not the issue. Baker throws interceptions every week. Baker throws bad interceptions in most of the games the Browns play, but the Browns are able to overcome that. The big issue is the running game. Hands down, end of story. Can't run the ball, they're not going to win football games. I mean, I don't know how much more clearer you can put that.
100%.
And it showed.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You were going to go with the stats. My more concerning one is the yards per carry.
Well, I was going to say 75 yards, but yeah, today was 3.4 yards a carry, which isn't going to get it done. You're right.
I mean, Kareem Hunt is having to break 3 tackles to get 4 yards. It's not going to work. I don't care who's in the backfield for the Browns. It's just not going to get it done. There's no holes.
Yeah, and losing to 30 points by the two teams in your division, so Baltimore in Week 1 and then this afternoon's game, 30 points to each opponent. It's like, just as you think the Browns are starting to really put it together. I'll say this. I don't think that this game dictated whether the Browns make the playoffs this season. I really don't. I think they're still in pretty good shape. I am a proponent, and I believe that the AFC North could have 3 teams make the playoffs this year, in the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns. Because remember, each conference has 7 teams make the playoffs, and that's the first time that the league has done that. But going into this game, Eric, history was against the Browns, right? So the last time the Browns have beaten the Steelers in Pittsburgh was in 2003. The Browns are 1-27 in Pittsburgh against Steelers teams that make the playoffs. I expect this Steelers team to make the playoffs because Steelers are now 5-0, 5-0 for the first time since 1978. So look, the Browns are improved from a season ago. There's no doubt about that. Might not have appeared that way this afternoon, but they're in a very, very tough division with the Ravens and the Steelers at the top. I still believe that the Browns make the playoffs and that this division gets 3 teams in. I'm also a proponent of, I think the AFC North is the best division in football, even better than the NFC West. I'd love to hear your thoughts about my breakdown there, but I don't think that this afternoon's loss is a deal breaker when it comes to the Browns for their push for the postseason for the first time since the 2002 season.
Listen, I'm concerned about what this says about the Browns whenever they face a really quality defense. But, I mean, is it panic mode? I know the first inclination for every Browns fan after every bad loss is to panic. It's how I felt after week 1 against the Ravens. I mean, look at the schedule. The schedule's easy. Like, let's say what it is. You get to play the Giants, the Jets, the Eagles, even like the Raiders, the Jaguars. Like, there are so many winnable games on this schedule. And then you get the Bengals again, which should be a winnable game. I mean, there are 6 or 7 easy winnable games in terms of the Browns' future schedule. I think they should have no issue getting to 9 or 10 wins because you hope on top of those winnable games, you also have Baltimore and Pittsburgh both at home. And as bad as the Browns have played the first 2 times against each of those teams, you assume hopefully they can split at home against one of those top conference or division opponents. So panic mode? No, not really. If they lose to the Jets, Giants, Eagles, one of those teams, then I think you start to panic a little bit because those are – I mean, there are 5 to 6 games. There's no excuse.
Yeah, and look at the record of the teams that they've played thus far. The Browns opponents coming into this game had a combined record of 7-12-1. The Steelers haven't played anyone really either. Coming into this game, their opponent's combined record was 3-15-1. So you made up a great point there, Eric, was in the sense that, again, who are these teams beaten? And that's why I was really excited for this afternoon's matchup. I was so psyched because they put Jim Nantz on the call, Tony Romo, like CBS made this their game this week, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, I don't know what went wrong. It almost – and maybe I'm getting a little bit too far onto one side, but the Browns remind me of like a tier below version of Baltimore in the fact that I can't see this team coming back from double-digit deficits this season. It's because in the same way that Baltimore, when they get down, kind of they lose their identity, I think Cleveland is very quick. I forget, were they down double digits against the Cowboys? I thought they were down just 7. At one point, I can check that one.
I can't. We'll get IT on that. We'll get IT on that. But
get IT. The deep IT department on this podcast, deep research department on this podcast. They were down. No, they were down 7 at the most.
I know what you mean though with Lamar in the sense that that's the narrative with him, and the stats back that if the Ravens go down by double digits, I don't think he's ever come back from a double-digit deficit, and that's the concern with the Ravens, especially when you get to the postseason. When look, a lot of times the teams that go on to win the Super Bowl at some point they faced a huge deficit. Look what happened to the Chiefs last postseason in the game against the Houston Texans. They're down 24-0 and they come back and win. And so you've got to find different ways to win in this league depending on your competition, especially the top competition, because one team might have a completely different style of play than another. And so that's what you would want to see with this Browns team, or if you're a Ravens fan with the Ravens. But I think that's a great point in the sense that, look, especially with the Ravens, how often are the Ravens going to go down by double digits? But for the teams that are able to put up points, again, if you get into that huge deficit, are you in situations to be able to come back? And with this Browns team, like relying on Baker Mayfield to do that, I could get into the stats too, Eric, about how he struggles against pressure. And the Steelers defense blitzes among the top teams in the NFL. And we saw that again today against the blitz. He was 2 for 6 for 11 yards, had an interception and 3 sacks. And so I could run you through the stats all day long with Baker, but it's no secret that he struggles against the pressure. And that was, evident yet again in today's game.
And I think, again, it goes back to just the fact that, at least from the view that I saw, no real stats to back it up, but when you can't run the ball, I think the Steelers just overplayed play action. And like you said, they were able to pass blitz all the time because once the Browns got down, they couldn't run the ball. And at that point, what do you have? You have an O-line that really is struggling. And the play action, which is usually the big success card for the Browns, I think the Steelers sniffed it out just about every time. There may have been 1 or 2 times where it worked. But most of the time I saw that play action, there was a guy right in Baker's face immediately because they didn't respect the run.
Yeah.
And when a team doesn't have to respect the Browns' ability to run, I don't know what this team's going to do.
Eric, it sounds like you're a proponent of starting Baker if he's healthy, and who knows?
Absolutely, 100%.
Who knows? And I am too, because if he's your first overall pick, you've got to see what you have in this guy with a large sample size.
What has Case Keenum shown us ever? Obviously that year with the Vikings where they were good, but that defense was unreal.
Well, I think that would be the argument, and this is something I want to hear from the listeners or anyone watching this back on YouTube once it gets posted, is what would be your argument to start Case Keenum? And I think what that would be would be this. That run he went on with the Vikings in 2017, remember Kevin Stefanski was on the coaching staff in Minnesota. So maybe he has a good rapport with Stefanski and the Browns staff dating back to his days in Minnesota. But I go back to how many teams has Case Keenum been on at this point? So you want to talk about large sample size. If he were really that good, he wouldn't be a backup in this league. And so there are going to be Browns fans say, oh, we need to get Baker out of there because he's not getting it done. And I don't think he's played up to being the number 1 overall pick, but your alternatives, Case Keenum, I don't think the results are going to be all that much better. Yeah.
With the Browns franchise is there's no consistency. The minute the team is 4-2. Who benches a quarterback when the team is 4-2? That's what, you know what I'm saying? People are out here acting like the team is 1-5, 0-6. They're 4-2. They're above 500. I don't understand. Baker clearly isn't holding them back that much because they have a winning record. They were 4-1 for the first time since 1994. Yes, a bad loss. I get it. 2 bad losses against 2 really good teams. But Case Keenum is not the difference between 5-1 and 6-0 right now. And I think if anyone makes that case, they don't know anything about football and they haven't been watching the Browns. If you think Case Keenum, if Case Keenum starts, if this team is 5-1 and 6-0, you're crazy. You are out of your mind. And so that's the reason why I say, what are you benching him for? You're going to set back the franchise 4 or 5 years if you bench him, because if you bench him, you're giving up on him. His confidence is down. What's the point of keeping him at that point if you're going to bench him the minute things get rough?
Yeah, I'm with you.
You need to trade him at that point. If you're going to bench him right now, you might as well trade him because that's the message.
Well, the deadline's gone, so how do you even go about doing that?
Exactly.
Here's my thing. I would start Mayfield. The next step for me would be then, okay, maybe you don't pick up his 5th-year option on his rookie deal. That might be something that you actually consider. But you're exactly right. Benching him with the start that this Browns team, if you would have told most Browns fans at the start of the season that this team would be 4-2, I think every single Browns fan would have signed up for that immediately. And he's not making up the 30-point deficits to Baltimore in week 1 and this week to Pittsburgh. Case Keenum's not. He's not making up those deficits. So
and here's
it's a great point.
Everyone, for clear reasons, is going to notice when he has games like he did today, like he did against Baltimore, like he did in the second half against Indianapolis. But who kept Cleveland in that game against Indianapolis in that first half? They couldn't run the ball in the first half. Baker is the reason that the Browns had a lead at halftime. Yeah, he threw a pick six, which got the Colts back into the game. But early on, or he didn't throw a pick six, but he threw an interception that gave the Colts really good field position after the kick return touchdown in that second half. But Baker, when he had protection, looked really good against a good Colts defense. So I just – if you're going to point out every time he looks bad, at least acknowledge the times when he looks good.
Were there any silver linings that you noticed today for the Browns? I was seriously trying to find one, and it was just like maybe that they avoided major injuries beyond what they already have. Again, playing without Wyatt Teller. Two of their safeties were out in Carl Joseph and Ronnie Harrison. Obviously, Nick Chubb did not play this afternoon, and I thought Nick Chubb could have made a difference in this game if he could come back in the rematch later this season when the game is played in Cleveland. I'm interested to see how he could fare against the Steelers defense. You're going to need all the help that you can get. But were there any silver linings that you noticed?
I'm going to sound crazy here. I don't think the defense was that bad.
Okay.
Today. I mean, the Steelers ran 62 plays, had under 300 yards. They averaged less than 5 yards a play. Like passing-wise, 148 yards. Rushing-wise, yeah, they had 129 yards, but it was on almost 40 carries. I mean, what more do you want the defense to do in this game? I mean, the Steelers had the ball for almost 35 minutes. Like, the time of possession was crazy. I don't think the defense was awful today. I mean, maybe you can rebuttal that, but, like,
well, that's what happens when that's what happens when you lose the turnover battle. If you would have told me coming into today's game that the Browns would lose the turnover battle and that James Conner would rush for more than 100 yards, I'd say Browns aren't going to win this game. That's especially with the way Conner was running. He was running just almost angry. He was probably the Steelers' most effective player from an offensive standpoint. Yeah. And I think that's a great point. You bring up you look at the 38 defense is going to get tired.
You look at the 38 points and you think, okay, they played really bad. Okay, 7 of it came off the interception for a touchdown. 7 came essentially off of going for it on 4th down and giving them a short field. I mean, one drive that the Steelers had went over 55 yards. Yeah, they just had short fields. They couldn't move the ball, so the Steelers got great field position, and then they scored off of it. Like another touchdown. 2 touchdowns came off downs, 4th down, not being able to convert on 4th down. So again, I don't know what you want from this defense, but I don't think they were that bad.
Yeah, and
I think they played pretty serviceably.
And the other interception too. So you had the one to Minka, and then I think it was Cam Sutton for the Steelers who had the other pick. And again, you get an interception, you get a turnover, you've got the shortened field to work with, and it's like you don't have to be as effective. And it's funny you mentioned at the start of this game, the Steelers go down and get a field goal, and I'm like, okay, this Browns defense holds the Steelers to a field goal. Yeah, the Steelers draw first blood, but I'm like, 3's a lot better than 7 in that situation. Let's see what we can do with the first drive. Then it's like immediately Baker throws the pick. Like, I understand as a quarterback, there is going to be some risk that you take throwing the ball down the field, but it's like, how many weeks in a row? I know Mayfield had a 2-week stretch where he didn't throw a pick, but just you see what that does to your team. Like, you mentioned how you think that the Browns defense didn't play that poorly. Like, Ben Roethlisberger was 14-22 and had 162 passing yards and 1 touchdown. It's not like he lit the world on fire today.
Right,
he didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah. And again, 4th quarter, you can throw the 4th quarter out the window.
Yeah.
Like, nothing from the 4th quarter mattered to me in this game. So I think much maligned Browns defense, at least in the secondary, was pretty solid. And credit to the Steelers. I mean, they did a good job of neutralizing what the Browns do best, which is rush the passer. It was a lot of quick throws, and they ran the ball.
And how about that adjustment, too, on the touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger to James Washington? you could see how the Browns secondary was trying to jump a lot of the Steelers' passes. And I'm not sure if the Steelers had game planned for that and trying to get the ball out quickly. Certainly, you could imagine why that would be the case with Myles Garrett coming off the edge. Again, we've talked here on the Browns Nation station about building his candidacy for a potential Defensive Player of the Year award. But you saw that the Steelers made an adjustment, and on the touchdown pass to Washington, they did a double move to where Washington completely beat the Browns. I believe it was Denzel Ward on that play on the double move.
I didn't get a good look at the replay. Were there two guys covering James Washington to start? It almost looked like there were two guys in that area, and then for some reason, both of them just stayed in the same spot, and Washington just went up for the touchdown.
And I don't think it was a blown coverage. I just think the defensive back, Ward, was trying to make a break on a pass, thinking it was going to be a quick out, and then Washington turned it back up, and there was no one else over the top. And so I don't think that was a blown coverage. I just think it's, sometimes you're going to get beat if you're playing aggressively, and that happened there. But I think potentially the Steelers saw something either from an offensive coordinator standpoint, or maybe they saw something on tape or on the tablet to say, hey, let's take advantage of this. And they did on that play.
I just think it's the thing of the Steelers did a really good job of getting their short passing game going, especially after those first couple drives. And anytime you get a short passing game going, teams are going to overplay you short because they don't want to get dink and dunked to death. And so you take a shot. That's what teams do. You give them the out and up. And it works.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the case of that happening. I mean, you over pursue the short route because it's what they've been doing all day and killing you with, and you're going to get beat every once in a while on that.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. I was really interested to see, okay, how do the Steelers receivers stack up against this Browns secondary? That's a weaker portion of this team. But then how does the Browns passing game get going, and kind of comparing the two? Because, I mean, you look at the receivers in this game, OBJ, Jarvis Landry, who didn't even he had 3 catches today, was pretty quiet. But then on the flip side of the ball, Chase Claypool, as a rookie coming off a 4-touchdown performance last weekend, he had 4 receptions today. I was interested to see how both receiving cores really get going, and the numbers were pretty similar: 165 yards for the Browns and 168 for the Steelers. But again, I mean, like, if you just look at the totals, Eric, I think you've got something there in the sense that it's not like the Steelers offense was incredible, but they had great field position to work with.
Yeah, they weren't moving the ball at will. I mean, the Browns defense kept them in the game until the offense was just really as poor as it could possibly get. I mean, it kept being defense gets a stop, offense does literally nothing with it. Defense gets a stop, offense doesn't move the ball at all. But yeah, it's been a reverse of most of the game. For the defense hasn't been that great, and the offense has kind of bailed them out by scoring a ton of points. This time is the exact opposite, where the defense didn't really play that poorly, but the offense, man, just could not move the ball to save their lives.
And Pittsburgh's going to do that to a lot of teams, though. Pittsburgh's going to do that to a lot of teams and make a lot of offenses.
I mean, they make you one-dimensional.
Yep.
That's what they're great at. They make you one-dimensional, and they did it to the Browns here. And the Browns can't afford to be one-dimensional unless that one dimension is running the ball. If the Browns are one-dimensional in terms of passing the ball, they're not going to win many games this year. I don't know if it comes down to being more creative with your running game, just committing to it even more. I remember from last time you do the bad call.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Good call, bad call.
Tied for me.
Okay.
First one was whatever that double screen, they like fake reverse screen. I don't know. It didn't work at all. Baker got sacked for like a 10-yard loss deep in their own territory. It was whatever that play call is needs to be retired. And then the other one was in the third quarter, 2nd and 2. Kareem Hunt was having some decent success running the ball. I think he had like 17 rushing yards on that drive already. 2nd and 2, try to pass the ball, sack, punt. 2nd and 2, you should run. In 0 worlds should the Browns ever pass on 2nd and 3 or less. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. I think that was one of the – I don't remember exactly what the score was in that game. I just remember thinking, what the heck? Why aren't they – why pass the ball on 2nd and 2? It didn't – okay. So they were down 10-0 in the first quarter. Yeah, Hunt had a 10-yard gain, then a 7-yard gain. It was 2nd and 3 on the Pittsburgh 36. Tried to pass the ball, sacked, incomplete, have to punt from the Pittsburgh 43. A chance to get a big score there. And I don't know why I will never understand why they go away from the running game in those short situations. I don't get it.
On the screen pass, let me ask you this. They set up a screen pass that was so slow developing. They're trying to get the ball to Kareem Hunt. They faked the end round action. I believe OBJ was on the end round action. At first I thought Mayfield was going to flip it to him. Like, how much would I have to pay you to be the quarterback on that play with Bud Dupree and TJ Watt rushing at you full speed?
More than whatever Baker Mayfield got paid to run that play. Against
this Steelers front, I don't understand how you could run that play either, just because it's so slow developing.
The whole point of a screen is to get the ball out quick, and all he did was give the Steelers pass rush. They didn't block him because it was a screen, and they gave him more time to get to the quarterback. I didn't understand it.
Yeah. And getting away from the run, Hunt had 13 carries for 40 yards. But again, if you're facing this massive deficit, it's not like you can just line up in the I formation and hand him the ball time after time after time after time, because you don't have the play clock to be able to do that.
I will say, your number one running back getting 13 carries is never going to work.
Oh, yeah, I agreed there.
The Browns will not win. I can make this prediction confidently on this podcast, exclusively on this podcast. The Browns will never win a game where their top running back gets less than 15 carries. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I'll say this, Eric, you might be reconsidering whether you think Nick Chubb is worse than Kareem Hunt, because I know you said a few weeks ago you preferred Hunt over Chubb.
You could have put Derrick Henry behind that offensive line today, and he's not gaining that many.
I hear you.
What do you want Kareem to do? Did he go? You can go back and find, if you want to go back and find holes he missed, fine. Then you can start making your case.
Yeah.
There are no holes.
Yeah.
He got hit within a yard of getting the ball every time. He had to break 3 or 4 tackles just to gain 3 yards.
I hear you.
Put Nick Chubb behind that O-line today, and I don't think it's any different.
I hear you. I think it would have been a similar result.
Maybe,
I do think
the only thing is
I'm of the notion that Nick Chubb's a little bit better, but I hear the argument that you're making.
Again, you may. The only thing is maybe you just have more depth at running back to run the ball more. Oh.
And I think we lost Eric. We will try to get him back. I'm going to go ahead and pause this really quickly. Stand by. Okay, Eric, it looks like we've got you back. Technical difficulty there. But we were just talking back and forth about the difference between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And especially in today's game, it probably wouldn't have made that big a difference. Whichever guy you think's better, it's pretty marginal between the two because both are excellent running backs.
The offensive line was bad. End of story. I mean, that's all you need to know. They were awful. They played arguably their worst game of the entire season. Couldn't protect Baker, couldn't open up the running game, no matter who you are.
Yeah. Eric, next weekend, the Browns have the Bengals in week 7. I would expect the Browns to be favored in this one, going up against a rookie quarterback in Joe Burrow. I'm excited to watch this one. It'll be in Cincinnati, but any thoughts headed into that one as we start to wrap up here on the Browns Nation station?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what this passing defense is able to do against Joe Burrow. It's only a couple weeks, but you can see the improvement from Joe Burrow week by week. Bengals probably should have beat the Colts in Indianapolis this week, so it kind of shows the improvement but that team is making. So even though they played them 3 weeks ago, I think it's going to be a vastly improved Bengals team from what we've seen, and it's in Cincinnati. So I think this will be a good measuring stick for where the Browns are in terms of beating the teams that you need to beat.
Yeah, hopefully Burrow doesn't have to throw the ball like 61 times again. So we'll see if if the Bengals are able to protect him, if they're able to run the ball a little bit, but I know he threw the ball a whole bunch when the teams had played earlier in this season.
Yeah, Myles Garrett needs to have a field day once again because that Bengals O-line is awful. They are horrific. So line of scrimmage is going to be another key. You should be able to easily, I think, win the battle at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. If not, you're going to have some really big concerns. This is one of those games where it's almost not a lose-lose situation because it's not like you're going to come out of this game feeling really, really good about the D-line, the O-line, because you expect them to dominate Cincinnati.
Yeah.
The only thing that can happen is you come out of this game feeling worse about this O-line, D-line, because it's going to be another week where they struggle and you're like, okay, is this an actual issue I need to worry about? So this will be hopefully a pass-fail test for the O-line, D-line that they both pass.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how much better this Browns offense plays if you can control the line of scrimmage, and how much better Baker Mayfield can look as a quarterback if you also control the line of scrimmage. Again, I would be a proponent of starting him moving forward. Like, if you're of the notion that Case Keenum gives you a better chance of winning, what was he doing on the bench in the first place to start this season? And this is going to be a topic you hear all week. Go ahead, Eric.
What percent health does Baker have to be at for you to feel comfortable starting him? Because we don't know how healthy he was today, and he took a lot of hits to that midsection area. And I, you know me, I'm on board with you as strong as you're not starting Case Keenum next week because he gives you a better chance to win. But where do you look in terms of risk reward of starting a guy? If he's, what percent healthy does he have to be for the risk to factor out to the reward of starting him against a team that you should be superior at no matter who the quarterback is?
I don't know if I can put a number on it. His ability is compromised if it's throwing the ball or running around to where
they
he's
said on the
in
broadcast,
pain.
it hurt for him to throw.
And I heard it hurt for him to throw. I heard he struggled sleeping this last week too, is something that they said the broadcast too.
Do you almost give him a week off?
If he's not starting, okay, that's fine. You give him a week off to where, but he's not your backup then either.
No.
And whoever the third stringer is would then be backing up Case Keenum. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But if Baker Mayfield's 100%, he needs to be in there as the starter this week. And you're going to hear so much chatter about this, and honestly, overreaction. Eric, your point, and this is my final thought of, okay, is Case Keenum really going to make up 30-point deficits in week 1 to Baltimore and this past week against Pittsburgh? And the answer is a definitive no.
Is he a reason you're 5-1 or 6-0 as opposed to 4-2? Absolutely not. The only concern I would have with giving Baker a week off is, like, even if you sit him out, put him in street clothes, does it just naturally in people's head create that controversy regardless of how little controversy? Because Baker clearly, his issue is that he feels at times that he needs to put the team on his back and make these unbelievable plays, and that's what hurts him in the end. So if now there's even more chatter because he doesn't start for a week, and say the Browns beat the Bengals because, well, the Browns are just better than the Bengals, then is there even more chatter about, well, is Case Keenum the guy? And then how does it mentally affect Baker Mayfield? As much as he says he doesn't listen, I mean, he has the book of everyone. He has that called book of people who have doubted him. So, I mean, as much as you could say it fuels his fire, does it also affect him mentally in a season where maybe he struggled a little bit?
I do go back to your point about continuity with this franchise at the quarterback position, with head coaches, with general managers. And it's like the best teams and organizations in this league have stability at those positions and roles within a franchise. And so that's why Baker Mayfield has to be the guy. Now, if you want to get into the conversation of, do the Browns pick up his 5th-year option? That's where the conversation needs to go. It's a smarter conversation versus, oh, this journeyman quarterback in Case Keenum. Any team in the league could have had Case Keenum this offseason, Eric. any team in the league. I hear what you're saying in terms of the off-field chatter, and in say Keenum does start against the Bengals because Mayfield is banged up. Okay, but you should beat the Bengals. I'll go back to your point of look at the schedule. Who are the teams that you should beat week in and week out? And looking at the schedule, the teams that you've got to win. This is one, I know it's an AFC North matchup, but this is one of those games where you have to win because the Bengals, yeah, Joe Burrow's a great story. They do have some talent on the offensive side of the ball. But we knew the Bengals were going to struggle this year with the rookie quarterback, regardless of how well Joe Burrow has played.
I think the big question, and I think there's a lot Kevin Stefanski really needs to think about when he makes this decision, is what do you view this Bengals game as? Do you view it as a game where you guys are just so much better than them that you don't need to start Baker Mayfield if he's not 100%? Or do you view it as a game of, yes, they are so bad that we should be able to beat them and we can play Baker at 80% and it can be a confidence booster for him and it doesn't put him in harm's way because, again, we are so superior to them in those important areas. So it's which way do you look at it?
And I'm looking at some of the things that he said after the game here on Twitter during our post-game reaction, Eric. And one of the reporters asked him, oh, well, did your injury contribute to your poor performance today? I mean, I'm paraphrasing what the question was. And he said, no. He said 100%. Now, is that the truth? Is that the case? Probably not. But if he says that and he's suited up, he's in uniform, he's under center, you got to be able to perform. You got to be able to compete. You got to be able to win. And if he's in a uniform, I expect he's good enough to go. So it kind of go back to your question about what percentage he needs to be. If the Browns feel like his ability is compromised, okay, start Keenum because I don't think the drop-off is going to be all that much between Mayfield and Keenum. I think it's marginal, the difference between the two quarterbacks.
Yeah. I think who starts the quarterback this week will have no impact on whether or not the Browns.
Yeah, like I don't think the line will move. Like when the line opens up in Vegas with the odds makers, say Mayfield is out this week. I don't expect the line to move all that much with the understanding that Keenum would then start.
The Browns should beat the Cincinnati Bengals with me and you at quarterback this week.
That is an excellent way to sign off. Eric Kelly, this is always fun, always good to catch up with you, old college friend from the University of Missouri. But thank you for joining the Browns Nation station here this afternoon following the Browns 38-7 loss.
Only bring me in on wins going forward.
I'll see what I can do there, Eric. But where can people find your work?
The usual places, Twitter, Eric Kelly TV, Instagram, I guess. It's a generic name. Good luck finding it. There's thousands of us out there.
He is a good follow during Browns games. I always appreciate your sarcasm on Twitter. It always helps with both wins and losses. I'll see what I can do there in the coming weeks to bring you back on as a guest on the Browns Nation station. I'll go ahead and sign out here for KMAX Sports Reporter Eric Kelly. I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you for listening to the Browns Nation station. Go leave us a 5-star review. Please rate, review, and subscribe. I will see you next week after the Browns-Bengals game. Take care, and so long, everybody.